So Marcion believed that the Jews who reject Jesus were following this other God, and that following Jesus is following the good God.
Oh, so he's like the original Kanye.
Yeah.
Right.
But he was a heretic, and you could see why. This is not doctrinal church stuff. But what's so fascinating about Marcion is how much we can look at him and talk about his ideas being weird and strange. His father is one of the 70 disciples, and he's the first Christian on record to have a Bible with Paul's epistles in it.
Yeah, I want to go back to this.
So he had to have been important.
I stuck a pin in this when you were saying it.
Yeah.
But the 70 versus 12, what's the history there of how we landed on these?
So it's not a contradiction. There's 12 core apostles. You know, the 12 core,
So
that's the inner circle of Jesus.
Right.
Then there's 70 on the outside circle.
So you got like the major leagues and then like the AAA team.
You got the AAA team, yeah. And so Marcion's father would have been one of these.
So one of the AAA guys got access to like some of the most important scripts?
He's one of the 82 major.
I know, but I feel like that would be among the 12, right?
You would think. But what's interesting about
Maybe
that?
it leaked.
What's interesting about that is there is no Peter. Like there's the letters of Peter. A lot of scholars think that's written later.
Why do they think that was written later?
There's textual criticism reasons for it. They go through it. They comb through the text, and there's reasons why. I'm not really sure. I'm not going to even.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, because I don't know.
There's so much here you can't know. Everything.
I don't know why they think Peter is forged, but they do. A lot of scholars do. Obviously, Christians don't, so they might be right. Maybe this Peter's letters, but there's no like evidence. So Eusebius does say that when Mark got written, Mark was written by Mark, obviously, in Alexandria, with Peter telling him what to write. So,
like sitting with him.
According to Eusebius, the Gospel of Mark is Peter's Gospel. According to Eusebius.
On what evidence does Eusebius base that?
He just says it.
He just says
and
it.
He's and the reason why it's so doubted is because he's the first person to say this in almost 300 years have gone by.
Like, did he talk with him? No.
No. So Eusebius is living in the 4th century. He's living in the time of Constantine. And he's just kind of saying shit. He's just kind of going, Peter gave us Mark, basically. But yeah, then then
it becomes, but you see how wild that is? Then that becomes like a record. Like, Eusebius, real straight shooter.
Yeah.
This is what he said.
Yeah, he said a lot of stuff like that. He made, Eusebius had a lot of weird stories like that.
Like, could you imagine me being like right now, like, I know old Georgie Washington and Paul Revere, they were sipping some ale in 71. It was at Frank's Tavern. Yeah. I know this. It happened. Just trust me. And now, like,
just outright
you're like,
saying
yes,
it. That's right. How Eusebius operated. He was very much like that. What was I going to say? Eusebius gets like, people think that he forged a bunch of stuff, that he's the one who wrote Josephus's Testimonium Flavianum, which is the passage in Josephus that mentions Jesus. People think that's forged. I don't think it's forged. Most scholars think...
Meaning like he wrote it in?
He completely wrote it in. The whole thing was fake. And the reason why they say this is because Origen, who's living a century, 2 centuries before this, talks about Josephus, but doesn't mention this passage, which is odd. You would talk about Josephus, but not mention a passage that mentions Jesus. It is a very good argument. I'm not going to lie. But the experts, I'm just going to go off what the experts say here. Steve Mason is like a authority on Josephus stuff. He thinks that passage is legit, but it was heavily edited later on. So he thinks that Josephus did write about Jesus, but the version we have right now in all of our versions is all completely edited and interpolated, he says. So basically, they edited it to make Jesus, because it's a very odd passage.
Is he basing that? This might be a dumb question, but is he basing that on whatever the original record of it was? Meaning, like, he can look at the original record and say, like, in modern day terms, oh, they whited that out right there. Here's how I know that.
No, because the oldest manuscripts from the Josephus are like after the 5th century anyway. So you're going through manuscripts that are already after the supposed interpolation already happened. There's no, we don't have any physical fragments of Josephus that go before Eusebius. So it's possible that he did do this, but I think it's still speculation. But I forgot where we were on that.
Actually, there's an important point here, and maybe this will lead to some new topics as well. But I think about this all the time, and this relates to every religion, every ancient text, whatever it was. You and I, we're talking about this off camera before we started. It's like when we look at time, right? We're in 2025 right now. When we look at the 1960s, that seems like a long time ago, right? It seems like it was so different, but we have a record of it. Our parents might have been born then. You know, we know people who are alive from that time period. Like, you can still touch it and feel it. But we have this idea that, oh, today iPhones, back then, you know, they were just fucking dancing to Jimi Hendrix or whatever. It's like a whole different world. But it's like this exponential theory of time, though. When you look at history and the farther and farther back you go, the gaps of time become more and more scrunched together in our minds. Meaning, like, we look at the 1960s and 1990s as totally different eras right now, but we may just casually talk about 100 AD and 200 AD because it's way farther back and outside of our realm of thought.
Right.
We may look at that as, oh, that's basically the same thing. It's not. It's like it's fucking 5 generations apart. You know, like, it's a totally different world, no?
Right. Yeah, no, and exactly. So, like we mentioned, 136 is the year that Valentinus is running for bishop. This is already a century plus,
after Christ.
A century a year after his death has gone by. Completely different world. None of them met Jesus. None of them know. So they're all like, they're like us. They're trying to figure out what happened.
That's pre-stock market crash in today's parlance.
Yeah.
Think about that.
And it's interesting because it's like, it would be like right now, we're 100 years after World War I now. And it's like right now, people starting to like add details to what happened during World War I. Imagine someone for the first time goes, oh, by the way, there was an alien recovered in World War I. And I know you never heard this yet, but I'm telling you, this is new evidence that we found.
Somewhere James Fox is like, what?
Yeah. And so that's kind of how Christian lore builds up over time. You get new things being added to the stories over time.
But it's everything. It's not just...
That's everything.
Like, it's literally everything, no matter what you believe or what ancient history you're looking at, whatever it is. It's like, it's always going to be imperfect because it's human beings doing it. They're doing it with their own beliefs and biases that are put into it, and they're doing it over a length of time. You were just talking about manuscripts written about the Josephus thing in fucking 500 AD or whatever.
Right.
I mean, Christ has been dead for almost 500 years at that point.
Right. And I talked to a lot of scholars who do textual criticism who are like big into manuscripts and, you know, comparing different manuscripts, and they say that after the medieval period kicks off, you get a lot of zealous scribes who want to fix things that. So, like, for example, the whole December 25th thing. Once that becomes part of the church tradition that December 25th is the birthday of Jesus, you get later scribes going back to older manuscripts and fixing the birthday of Jesus to be on December 25th. And they can tell because they can find other manuscripts that have the other dates on there.
Right.
So they go, oh, well, what's going on here? What's going on is there's scribes who are like, well, I want to make sure that these people get the right impression here, and they're going back and fixing manuscripts to sort of make things equal what's going on in their world. So that's another issue people have to deal with when you're examining manuscripts. You got to find out there's the possibility that what you're reading is an interpolation or some sort of like forged little area going on.
Do you think it's possible, and this applies to everything, not just Christianity, you could insert your religion here. Do you think it's possible that one of the religions actually is, on the whole, mostly right or has the right ideas, but we just live in a world where people felt like, as it was formulating over, you know, these early centuries, people felt like religion X needed to be 1,000% right. So they went back and personally like created an ivory tower around it to the point that now people are righteously questioning whether any of it's true because they feel like it's a cover up in a way.
Yeah.
I think possible.
I think that's definitely possible. Yeah. And I think people always have this like innate drive to question what they're being told by authority.
Yes.
So when you have a church that's like steeped in authority and tradition of like bishops, and you know they pass it on to the next bishop, and people go, wait a minute, is this because are they telling me the truth here? The people want to question that, and I think that's how you get Protestantism and how you get different.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.